year and how this works. This is the first time we're trying this on this page. So if this is something you guys like, hopefully we can do more. And it's kind of a cool way to interact with our actual group members, and then get to kind of know more about what they do. There's a lot of people in this group that have other stuff going on, whether it's related to Angels and Airwaves or to the stars, or even just the disclosure efforts. So I feel like there's a vast eclectic group in this group of people that we could maybe try and do this more often. But so today we have Mike Damante, and he's pretty, you might recognize the name in some of those other groups too. I know you're part of the Blink groups, the AVA groups, and you actually also have a book coming out, and you've written books before, so I thought I'd have you on, just chat about that for a little bit and see how everything's going. So welcome, Mike. How have you been handling the last year here?
Well, thanks for having me on. First of all, it's cool to be the guinea pig of this. Like I said, this is a really cool, your page specifically, because it really pulls in so many different fan bases. You know, it's not just the stars, it's Angel Airwave stuff, it's the UFO stuff. So it's really, yours is really all encompassing, you know, for people who are kind of under that umbrella. Thanks for having me on. This past year, like I said, it's been really hectic and busy. That's been a good thing. Last summer, I released Punk Rock and UFO Stranger Than Fiction, my UFO book. And then this summer, yesterday, I just released my book on the pop punk emo scene, and we'll talk more about that later. But between then and now, it's just been really hectic. You know, I'm a teacher, so full time I teach. So working during the pandemic's been really awful, and my wife is pregnant, and now we have a little girl. So now now things are better automatically. She's here, and things are looking up in terms of in general around people are getting vaccinated, and things are starting to slowly normalize. So if you asked me how I was doing last year, I would have been like ripping out my hair.
Yeah. I think everyone's finally, feels to be turning the corner, I guess, depending on where you're viewing from today. But it's been a wild year, and I think groups like this and books and things to allow people to have an outlet that otherwise they may not have, especially since we've been trapped at home for a while. So I'm guessing it kind of helps you as a writer in a sense. So just real quick, your book, it's called Hey Suburbia, A Guide to Emo Pop Punk Rise. And then just real quick, I just snagged probably a description that you may have written off of Amazon. It just says that it chronicles the music of the Warped Tour generation that launched bands like Paramore and My Chemical Romance into superstardom. Music journalist Mike Damante covered the genre for one of the largest media companies in North America, and has compiled the stories of 1990s to 2000s emo and pop punk explosion as told by himself, the bands, publicists, and the fans who never stopped listening. Featuring interviews with Blink-182, Taking Back Sunday, Descendants, Dashboard Confessional, Newfound Glory, Good Charlotte, Alkaline Trio, The Get Up Kids, Motion City Soundtrack, Save the Day, and others. Basically, my entire Napster playlist. A Guide to Emo Pop Punk Rise is the new anthem for your underground. So that sounds really awesome. Pretty much right up my alley for sure. I guess let's start with what got you writing in the first place. Obviously, it's not your first book. And based on the description, you've been a journalist for a while. So how did that even come up for you? Was that a love from early on, or did that kind of come out of nowhere, like so much does for people when they find their passion?
So great way to kind of phrase it, finding your passion, right? So I mean, I've been involved in journalism since high school. I kind of fell in love with being on newspaper. And then in college, I worked for the school paper, and then I also was working at nights of Eastern Chronicle. I got my foot in the door doing very menial stuff that eventually kind of turned into full-time copy editing, working on the website, and then covering the scene for them on the side. But it really started kind of around that era. And in high school, I would write a lot of the life and art section, and college. And in college though. at the time, the college, when you wrote for a college paper, that's like the key demographic to a lot of labels. So like free shows, free opportunities to interview bands, free CDs, free merch, like they were just sending this stuff. So like, as a kid who's into this stuff, then you really eat it up. And that was actually the first time I interviewed Tom, was for my college paper. Wow. And it was backstage at the Angels and Airwaves and Weezer tour. And I met Tom before, but this is really cool to actually sit down with him and backstage and just kind of talk to him. That was like definitely, so this day, it's probably my favorite interview ever, just because it really just felt like, once all the nerves kind of died down, it just really felt like we were just chilling. So that was kind of like my introduction. And then as I graduated and I stayed on at the Chronicle, I was like, hey, I've written all these stories, you guys really don't cover this type of music. Do you mind if I do this for no extra money, just, my free time?
Wow.
Like, yeah, sure. So, I really consider myself the unofficial pop punk writer, because we had two salaried reporters who would cover music, really good at what they do. One did like indie rock and like mainstream stuff, and the other one did more of like pop, hip hop, but all mainstream. So there really was like no one was really covering these types of bands. So I would always volunteer. Hey, can I do this? And I'd be like, you don't need to pay me extra. I already work here, and I'll take my own pictures, and you don't have to do anything. Just let me do it. And I'm like, sure. So I did that, while I was actually, working on it as an editor and working on the website as well. So I would do that. And I remember the biggest story I did for the Chronicle was when Blink did their reunion tour.
Oh, wow.
I interviewed Tom over the phone to preview it, and that was the front page story on our entertainment section, which was a pullout. And then again, when Blink did, when Neighborhoods came out, I was on a conference call with Tom and Mark, which is really cool. It was me and like maybe 8 other reporters. That's it. And then fast forward to after I left the Chronicle full time, I was able to kind of maintain a blog there. It's called Mike, and it's basically just I'll cover just to review albums here and there, and eventually cover a show. But I was like, at the time, I really wanted to do X Games because I covered Warped Tour, and I was able to do the last X Games in Austin, Texas, where Blink played, and I was able to interview all 3 men, Matt, Mark, and Travis backstage at X Games, which was another rad bucket list. So that was my experience kind of in music journalism, and along the way, as a kid as well, before I was into this, I was into like science fiction and horror movies and comics. So that was easy to kind of be into UFOs too, because that was kind of like a similar thing. So that's how I kind of got my start writing. And then the book basically came about all these years of covering this music. I had so many good quotes and interviews, and I was like, how can I tell this story with stuff I already have done? Like 90% of the interviews in the book were stuff I've already done before. So I was really compiling it and making a coffee table book that's something that easily digestible. You can pick up, read it. There's photos, there's art in there, there's playlists, there's a bunch of kind of like interactive stuff. And it's very nostalgic. So that's the point, is pick it up and just kind of, like you said, when you said Napster, that tripped me out. I referenced those days in the book, how you would hear a band and then like you go look them up on Napster and like just start downloading it. That's how we discovered music back then.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. I was actually just talking to someone. The song came on, like, oh my god, this was on our Napster playlist, and when that kind of came up, it was first. I think it was my freshman year of college and things like that. So we'd queue up a song and let it download for like our entire class, and then go back like 3 hours later and it's like 80% done. And then if someone kicked you off of theirs, you're like, oh no, I have to start over now. But that's awesome. Sounds like it kind of took a life of its own almost when you started, and then it kind of evolved into what it is today. So would you say that you had mentioned you're just kind of always into like science fiction too? So a lot of people like got more involved in the UFO scene as Tom did, but would you say like that was always kind of an interest of yours, and it just kind of serendipitously Tom took on that as well, so it's kind of a perfect match for you too?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. And I think that's like a lot of us. There's a lot of people who were into this stuff kind of before. Like I remember, so the first time I ever like heard of a UFO or anything like that, I used to read a lot as a kid. And my mom used to get me these Time Life magazine used to do a book series. It'd be like a subscription service. And for 3 months in a row, it was mysterious creatures, strange places, UFOs. So right away I was reading this and I was like, this is kind of like I'm reading my comics books, but this is something like there's something real here. So at a young age, I was like kind of into it, and like I would casually read books about UFOs whenever I could. I wasn't like hardcore into it.
Right.
And then like probably I want to say maybe in college, I got the book Communion as a gift, and that really kind of started it again for me. So I'm like, I haven't read a UFO book in a while. I'm going to read this.
Right.
But it's funny because, like, I remember the first time I heard aliens exist, I was like, that's so cool that my favorite band is singing about something I'm into. And then you hear, it's funny. Like I was thinking about the Urethra Chronicles DVD and then Tom's on there talking about like UFOs and stuff. So it's pretty cool. Like when the band you're into also share similar interests outside of the music. So that did actually kind of work pretty well. And then I forgot when. I think it was when I decided to write my first book about UFOs. It was maybe 2016, 15. I don't remember the exact year.
Yeah.
But it was kind of right. It was before the Pentagon stuff, the New York Times story hit. And that's when things really kind of blew up.
Yeah. I forget where I heard it, but there's kind of legends of Tom on the old tour buses in the middle of the night doing like Bigfoot hunts with everyone, and like, so I think they were kind of all whether they wanted to or not involved in that as well. But yeah, pretty funny. So you also in your other book, did you interview Lou Elizondo as well, or?
So I interviewed Lou after I wrote Stranger Than Fiction.
Okay.
So I'm trying to think. So it's Cryptozoology, True Believers, and then Stranger Than Fiction. Stranger Than Fiction is the best one. That's the one I got a quote from Tom in specifically about UFOs. Because like I'm really kicking myself from in the past when I interviewed Tom, not asking him about it, because those interviews I was writing for like a specific story and publication. Mm-hmm. So I didn't really deviate from it too much. Even though hindsight I should have.
Sure.
Who would have known years later? It'd be harder to have the opportunity to ask.
Yeah, you're probably just sticking to your script though at that point. Like,
don't
want to throw them off.
So when I was writing Stranger Than Fiction, so Stranger Than Fiction is basically about trying to normalize paranormal, and I do that through kind of looking at mythology, religion, pop culture, and I wanted to do a lot of current stuff. And obviously, the Tic Tac, Pentagon UFO story, all that stuff is common. And also I think a lot of stuff that Tom's doing with secret machines and all that is pretty current as well. So I actually caught them. I think I caught them at a really good time to get the quote, because I didn't demand, hey, I need this big interview. I said, hey, I'm doing a book. I just need this one quote. He can be emailed to me. And it was right when I remember that week, it was like during the pandemic when everything was locked down, and Tom was doing he was jumping on like every radio thing for like a week straight. So it was during that week I was able to, luckily, they were able to facilitate that. So that really, to me, meant the world to kind of have his quote in the book. But yeah, Lou came afterwards, just because like at the time, before that, To the Stars was their press was very, very specific with who they communicated with. And punk rock and UFOs is not CNN, it's not Washington Post, and you kind of have to understand that, being a smaller site. But they did see that the stuff I was doing, like the past work, and they say, oh, this is quality, and they really kind of whoever was handling their press really liked the direction of the book I was doing, so it just kind of worked. But Lou kind of was familiar with me. Sean Cahill gave him my second book, True Believers. And there's a picture that Sean posted, and I was like, oh my God, it's like Lou reading the book. And it kind of like mine. So when the opportunity, I think it was almost like the Lou interview almost came by accident. Because I emailed, because I was doing a story just kind of about, it was To the Stars element to it, but it's kind of more like a media type of thing. And I emailed To the Stars, the press, just asking if I can get a statement, basically like an official thing. And they came back with, hey, you want Lou Elizondo? And I was like, yes, please. So, once again, it was something where I just kind of emailed the questions and he got back to me. And, as we see, Lou really knocks it out of the park with the answers. And he gave me basically, the story wrote itself after, he gave me, I was able to take two big quotes and just make it into a full 8-paragraph story. So that's how the Lou Elizondo kind of interview came about. Yeah, because he's kind of tough to track down. Not a huge social media presence. So when I saw that you
contacted him. I was like, how?
Yeah, it was just one of
But
those things. Is like so it really towards the end of him at To the Stars, he really started doing a lot more of that. He got on
yeah,
Twitter. Now he interacts a lot on Twitter.
yeah, Twitter's pretty decent. Yeah.
And now he's everywhere. So like the people I think who were able to get him on like podcasts and like smaller stuff, I think they got him right at the right time because now he's basically everywhere. Now he's going to start doing like the UFO tour circuit as well. So I think I lucked out getting Lou at the time I did and Tom at the time I did.
Sure.
Because I tried to get Tom for the previous book and it just was like a no-go just because at the time, like, they were really, really careful with the messaging and who they were talking to. But no, Lou's everywhere. So I think it'd be harder to get Lou now than it would have been.
Yeah.
So last time, that was after the book came out. That was I remember doing that interview. It was last summer because I remember I was in Illinois with the in-laws when I got that, and that's when it was maybe like 3 weeks after the book came out.
Sure. So just question just kind of came up as we were talking, but the whole progression that's happened with To the Stars and the Academy, I have my own kind of personal thoughts on that. I'm kind of in the camp that it was always kind of the plan to have Tom kind of get the ball rolling, get it out there, set this thing up, and then if the others being Lou, Chris, and Steven were more beneficial to the cause elsewhere, then it would just be like a natural split. Whereas I know some people might say, oh, this was a failure because they all left and now it's nothing. I know I'm kind of a biased opinion, being a huge fan of what they're doing. But from your opinion, do you agree with that sort of sentiment that it was probably a plan, maybe not exactly the timing, but at the end, this is kind of how it was always supposed to happen, and then Tom was going to take the reins with the entertainment side?
I think so, yeah, to a degree. I don't think they anticipated losing all three of them at the same time.
Yeah.
And that soon. But I mean, really, Tom said from the start, his plan was to kind of start it and then kind of fall back into the background and do do Angels and Airwaves, do the entertainment. And this is like a lot of people who aren't, I guess, fans of Angels and Airwaves or a lot of the UFO people don't understand, like, this has been in the plan for years. I mean, he was talking about this before Dreamwalker. He was talking about years of making the band an art project, and they're going to do all these things that were associated with it and movies and all this stuff. So to us, it's not new. So when we hear this, that it's pivoting to more of an entertainment thing, it sounds like a natural progression, especially when you lose Steve Justice, Chris Mellon, and Elizondo. There's only so much you can do. I'm hoping that they still have those apps that they're working on. Because that would kind of, I think that's not the entertainment aspect. That's still kind of like a science portion. But worst case scenario, if the least that we get from To the Stars is a media based thing, and where there's little nuggets in the films and the music videos and the books that are based on something. I mean, I remember reading Secret Machines, the fictional one, and I was shocked that they put the Fae in there. I thought that was a ballsy thing to talk about the Fae in that book. So if that's what we get, cool. But I really think at the end of the day, if what To the Stars did was legitimize the topic, then mission accomplished. Did we really think they would become an aerospace company, even though Tom posted that shit? I mean, we didn't know. I mean, that was like high hopes. He shoots high.
Yeah, and I think the plan with that too was always that like it was the technology behind it. Like, were they gonna be like pounding the hammers to build the ship? Probably not. But do they have like the metamaterials whole thing with Hal is still kind of floating around out there, and now Stephen Justice works for Virgin Galactic, where he's actually building spaceships. So is that technology following Stephen? And that was an avenue to get that out. Who knows? But interesting stuff. I agree with the Secret Machines. It's funny to see the parallels that come out in the news now, whether it's like the triangles or some of the stuff that you see. And you're like, oh, I remember that chapter pretty much, right? So it is funny to see the parallels that in reality versus that book. But just to maybe kind of switch topics a little bit. So as far as like your punk rock background, I assume you're obviously a fan from even before you were writing about it. So if you could talk about that, and then what you think about Angels and Airwaves is doing right now with this new album. I know they're kind of taking a different approach to roll it out. I think it's kind of fun. Some people are a little anxious, and rightfully so. But I'd be interested to hear what you think about that, and just kind of the musical history from your upbringing.
Yeah, for sure. So I remember, so I grew up in New York, and then we moved to Texas. But in between, I lived in Pennsylvania for like a year.
Mm.
I didn't have any friends except for one kid, and we used to play Dungeons and Dragons together. And when I left, he gave me these CDs, and it was like really old school emo stuff, like Juliana Theory, Get Up Kids, and then there was Cheshire Cat in there. And I listened to it, but by Blink, and I was like, "There's something about this that it's doing something that I just don't know what it is." And then, I grew up being a '90s kid, and then the '90s was big booms with Green Day, and then again with Blink, and I remember when I heard, Dude Ranch, I'm like, oh my God, this is the band. This is that band that the same band blew my mind. And so it's kind of back then I kind of got involved in the music, and then more so in college, you kind of, more about the ethos and the activism part of it as well. So but like Angels and Airwaves, I think, a lot of people think we're punk rock kids like Angels and Airwaves. And I mean, to me, it sounds like, I read someone when they first came out, I read some articles so they sound like Blink 180 U2. And I thought that was a hilarious,
that's
not even true type thing. But no, I mean, I just like energetic music. Anything that has energy to it. Like I love Taylor Swift. I love hip hop every once in a while. But anything with like good energy to it. And Angels and Airwaves has energy to it, like all their songs, even like the slower songs. So right away, I was like an instant fan of the band. And obviously, Tom being a part of it is an easy sell, but it's weird with Angels and Airwaves. You have a large fan base that weren't fans of Blink too.
Right. Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the more hardcore Angels and Airwaves fans are more Ava fans than Blink fans. That's my impression.
Yeah.
Or they kind of went along, like they started with Blink, they went along with Tom, and they're just kind of now like just Ava, So like early on, I was a big fan of the band and all the stuff they were doing, which was pretty cool. Like, you're talking about kind of what they're doing now, and it kind of reminds you of like the Mod Life days.
Yeah, for sure.
Like a poor man's version of it. I don't mean that as like an insult. I just Mod Life is just different. So only things that maybe a smaller scale or different version of it. But like regarding the rollout, it's like I get it that why people are frustrated, but it's like we've actually gotten a lot of content these past couple of years. If you think about it, we got singles, we got tours. God, I was able to see them twice in 2019 in Austin and Houston. I was able to bring my wife to both shows; she'd never seen them before. Nice. I was able to go to both of the meet and greets. Like I was able, and that was years of not being able to see that band. Like 7 years. So like to be able to see that tour twice and all the stuff that they put out before that. All the content, comic books, short videos. And then during, like I said, the last few years, we got a tour, and then during a pandemic year, considering as a pandemic year, we got a decent amount of content. I mean, regarding, the fact that they were able to shoot a movie, Monsters of California, during a pandemic, and all the other things going on. It's like, I don't think people realize that it's like this stuff takes time and there's a logical rollout, and preferably, I'd rather have the album come out in the fall anyway, closer to tour. I don't foresee them touring until the fall anyway. That's my prediction. That's what it looks like. So it just makes sense. From a label standpoint, the label's probably like, why don't y'all go release the album and the tour in the fall when it's most likely going to be safer, you get more people. So to me, it's just logical. It's like, I'd rather wait at this point. Why? Better safe than sorry. Because the last thing I think they would want is book a tour and then there's like this crazy variant outbreak or something, something like that happens and you have to cancel it. So
I think if it weren't for the pandemic, we would have already had the album. We would have already had a tour. I don't think it was just because they were still writing and they're just really slow writers and they were just taking their sweet time. I really think this all would have happened last year. And just the way Tom is, he's like you had mentioned earlier, everything's an art project. It's all one body of art. So he doesn't want to just throw out an album like a normal band would. That's all they do. Their only medium is music. Whereas he sees this as a bigger rollout of not just an album, but the tour and the film and he mentioned in a radio interview that there's potential of a deluxe version with some of the tracks from the score on it. So it's like he obviously has this whole vision, and he always has, of putting things out as an experience and not just an album that you're sitting at home listening to, which we all want to do for sure. But I think between the coronavirus and his overall vision, he held on to that, where he probably could have released it earlier, but I think in the end we'll all benefit from this entire experience when it finally does come out, and we can see it all on tour. So I'm definitely excited. I'm personally glad he waited. I'm in the same boat as you, where I went to 3 shows on that last tour. I did like the Chicago, St. Louis, Minneapolis loop, and that first show in Chicago, after not seeing him since, I think the last time I saw him was the Weezer tour. And it was just like, I'm not like a super emotional guy, but when like they were coming out and they're kind of playing, I think The Diary is like kind of an intro, I was like, oh my God, this is happening. Like, it was just such a cool moment. And to me, I'll remember that much more than 3 average albums that I'm sitting at home listening to. So yeah, very cool. I'm super excited.
I was going to add something to that, what you said about the scoring the album. And I have a theory on that. I really think that the album and movie were originally supposed to come out at the same time, and part of the album was going to be the soundtrack. That's my theory. But I think they shifted and said, we're going to do an album, and then maybe we'll do a bonus, or maybe we'll do like an EP soundtrack. Like, I think there's more songs written than they because Tom said usually he doesn't have songs just lying around.
Right.
But I think there's stuff that's put to the side. That's with the movie.
Sounds like they're scoring it now. With Aaron and Elon, and I'm excited to hear that as well, just because I feel like what Elon did on his remixes when he first joined the band has a super cool sound to it. I think that's going to reflect in the score a bit, and I know he has a lot of influence from like Trent Reznor being on 9 Inch Nails, and he obviously does amazing scores for movies. So I kind of hope it's along those lines, and I'd love to hear that influence, that kind of eerie industrial kind of sound that Trent Reznor has. If Elon picks up on that, that would be amazing. But we shall see. So yeah, and then have you had a chance to get on the Empire Club at all, or?
Oh yeah, I commented on one of your things today. Actually, I saw one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've been on it. It's pretty cool, I guess. It's just another, for me, it feels like another social media app that's not like it's not toxic and it's not garbage, and you read it and you're not depressed. It's at least like a like-minded group of people where it's mostly positive stuff. So it's kind of fun in that aspect. And we were talking earlier, or a commenter about the Rebel Girl demo that they posted today, which is pretty cool. Like little things like that, I think I know people have their issues with it, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think it kind of flushes out the trolls if you're paying for it. It kind of brings up the true fans, at least it should anyway.
And you put it into perspective when you said if you break it down, it's only $7 a month.
Yeah.
When you put it that way, I didn't feel as bad, because when I put it I was like, oh man, what am I doing? But I'm like, oh, actually, Joe said it's $7 a month. That makes a lot of sense.
It's like Starbucks. I mean, not even. You probably spend way more at Starbucks than it. So it's like, honestly, is not a big deal. And it's not going to be quite like Mod Life. I know you mentioned earlier that like it's not the same. And I think technology has just evolved to where it just can't quite be like that. I think the big gripes that I agree with is it'd be great to see an app. It's tough to log in every time, and some sort of notification system I think would go a long way. But yeah, I'm a big fan. I think the biggest thing that I wanted was to make sure that they posted a lot of content and it wasn't just out there sitting for a month or two. And I think they've been great at the content that's been posted. So, the
Mod Life days really were like some of the golden eras. Like,
oh yeah,
I have so I joined it after. So like, when Angels and Airwaves played Warped Tour that year, that was my first year covering it for anything. I was covering it for like the school paper. Yeah. They had the Mod Life bus, and I didn't join yet, but I wanted to. And I just remember I had like my press pass on, and I went up to the table and I was like, hey, and the guy didn't even the guy working it. He just like looked at me, and I had like an Angels and Airwaves tattoo. and he just says, "Say no more." Like, and he just slapped on like a wristband. He's like, "Go on the bus." So I got to go on the Model Life bus, and like it was really cool. We took pictures with the band. They gave you like a signed like Model Life postcard, and we got pictures with Tom. And then I remember their manager at the time, he recognized me from another show. Or no, he recognized me from when I interviewed Tom previously, I think. Yes, that's what it was. And he goes, "Hey, do you want to watch them on stage?" So I got to watch Airwaves on stage, and there's a funny part to that. So like I'm on stage watching them, and someone tapped me on the shoulder, and I look down, and it's Haley Williams from Paramore.
Oh, wow.
She was looking for her boyfriend at the time, Chad Gilbert, and I don't know why she would think I would know where he was.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh my God, that's Haley Williams." So that was like a crazy like. But yeah, that Warped Tour was one of like the coolest ones, and that's when Model Life was really doing really cool stuff like that. And I think the Warped Tour was kind of allowed them to have that thing. Right. But yeah, that really was back then. Model Life and like the Love, the stuff they did on the Love Tour was really cool in terms of like interacting with fans and stuff.
Right. Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's a sweet story. Yeah, I was on there. I don't have any experiences like that, but yeah, I definitely remember that. And I did not catch Angels and Airwaves at Warped Tour ever. I've probably been to like 6 or 7 Warped Tours, but it was all kind of prior to that with Blink and You Found Glory and all those guys. So that's kind of what I grew up on in a sense. But so on this album, what have been some of your favorites so far as the singles that have been released, or maybe not the singles? I know they've kind of gone back and forth on what's what, but I would say just any of the tracks that have been released. Any favorites of yours so far?
It's hard. I think I go back to Rebel Girl as being overall the best constructed song. All That's Left Is Love is really good too. I know a lot of people thought it was just something he kind of threw together that was generic. But I think it's really good. Kiss and Tell. So listen to Kiss and Tell and Euphoria back to back, and it almost sounds like the continuation. They're very similar because it's like it's got that Boxcar Racer riff that he's recycled in many different variations of it. Euphoria is good too. It's different. I'm really looking forward to the songs we haven't heard yet, like the stuff that the little teasers, like Time Bomb sounds like it's an 80s band. What's the name of the band? The song's called The Promise.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
What's the name of that band?
I know New Found Glory did cover, right?
Yeah, I think they did. Yes, they did cover it. It sounds like that song. And then one of the things they posted, it was like a clip. It sounds like a punk rock song. It's really fast. It sounds like No Effects, but with like the soaring Angels and Airwaves stuff. And I don't know what song that's gonna be. I really want to hear that one. And then there's another one. It's just like a really cool riff. It's like it sounds like something that would whatever song that is. I want to hear it. So it's like the little tidbits and stuff that were teased. I'm hoping we hear them in those forms we were teased at, because like with the the demos of Dreamwalker when that came out, it's like, oh wow, we remember hearing clips, and then sometimes the finished product's a little bit different. And I think kind of us as fans, you hear it the first time, you want it to be that way, but who knows what they're going to sound like. And then the song, the anti-gun violence song, I really want to hear. So I'm just most of the stuff we haven't heard yet that we kind of, as fans, we're trying to speculate. Oh, is this song? Is this song? Right. Just from like the titles they sound like. But I think Rebel Girl is probably all around the best one. I guess it's hard. Like they're all different in their own ways, but.
Yeah, I was really surprised how Rebel Girl hit live. I don't know if you noticed that, but like when that came out, I definitely really liked it. But I wasn't sure how like the new music would translate live, just because there's so much like nostalgia with the old stuff. And when they busted that out, I think it was kind of after like a bit of a lull. And then I don't remember, like the curtain came down and it was like the updated logo. And they just went into Rebel Girl, and that was like, yes, like it. I was surprised when I heard that live. I think I just had so much more appreciation for that song and how it hits a live audience. So, and even some of the clips, based on how different Euphoria was between the verse and the chorus, some of those clips could be the same song, right? But it sounds like different songs. But if I heard a clip of the chorus versus the verse of Euphoria, I would think those are two different songs perhaps. So who knows what we're gonna see, but I'm definitely excited. I know some people are talking about ending on Rebel Girl. I don't know. I think all of that you have to take it as as you listen to the entire album. So it's just too hard to say what should go where without hearing the other songs. So I'll leave it up to the professionals who know what they're doing for track listing and all that. But
a friend of mine who's a big fan too, he had a good point. He says they shouldn't release any songs till closer to the album, because then when the album comes out, it's going to feel like an EP. You know,
right?
So unless there is 12 songs that this apparently was teased as well. So I mean, I'm patient. You know, I could wait. It's summer. Maybe give one in, what is this, June, August? Hit another single August, and then the album comes out in September. I'd be fine with 100%.
Right. I noticed too, like I was just thinking about this today, is I don't know if you follow AFI at all, but they're also on Rise Records, and their new album came out today. But they did a similar approach where they were releasing like 2 songs at a time, kind of on these little like EPs, and then they rolled out like the remaining. I don't know. I think there's only like 4 songs left that were new on the album. So I'm wondering how much of that release style is Angels and Airwaves versus Rise Records. Maybe in today's day and age, I feel like, you know, you can get a lot of traction on singles, whether it's, you know, streaming and YouTube and all that. I think it's almost a part of the way people consume music now. You almost have to have a couple singles just because people swallow up an entire album way too fast almost. So just a thought that perhaps it's more of an industry standard these days, and even Rise Records pulling a little bit of that direction rather than Angels and Airwaves. But
that's a great point, because I feel like every week on my release radar on Spotify, a new AFI song would be on there.
Yeah.
And
I was like, what?
The album, I'm like, when am I going to listen to the album? I feel like I've heard it already. And like another really good artist on Rise, Jetty Bones. Check her out. She's amazing. I really wish Ava would tour with her, because it would make sense. But before her album came out, it's like they had 3 singles and videos like ready to go. So you're right. That may be like a Rise Records thing. Yeah. Especially with AFI. Like,
Which, by the way, Angels and Airwaves AFI tour would be all about that. It'd almost probably be like a co-headliner. I'm not holding my breath, but that would be sick. One thing I also just want to ask real quick is, how do you feel about the music that Travis Barker is doing right now? It's kind of this new school pop punk in a sense, with you know, people like Kenny Hoopla, obviously Machine Gun Kelly, Jaden Hostler, some of these TikTok stars, and then even guys like Mod Sun, who's kind of in that same family with he's working with Feldman on his album and all that. So curious to think as what you think about that as kind of an OG punk guy like myself, if you're into that, or if you're kind of not feeling that as much.
It's weird, like the Kenny Hoopla stuff. I listened to it today. The mixtape. It's basically an album.
Came out today. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 2 songs short of an album. All the stuff Travis produced has been great.
Yeah.
And a lot of these songs, like when I heard the Machine Gun Kelly record, I'm like, man, I wish this was like what Blink. I wish this is what. I wish he brought some of these production or some of these songwriting tools to Blink. Because I'm like, as a producer. This is something I talked about with Ryan on 182 News Online podcast. He's been saying for years that Travis is going to be like the next big name producer in music. And like I think he's onto something.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I mean, Willow Smith did a pop punk song. Yeah. But like Mod Sun used to drum in like an emo band like back in the day.
So he's a Minnesota guy, so he was he's from where I'm at. He was all over the place back in those days. He was kind of in that scene, so yeah.
It's interesting because there's like obviously, you know, we're older, so there's like that gatekeeper element to it, where it's like we kind of wish that the pop punk that was getting popular were coming from more authentic pop punk bands. But if someone listens to Machine Gun Kelly and then goes back and listens to New Found Glory or XPX, cool. And if Travis is slowly ushering pop punk back into the mainstream or whatever, it's an interesting way to do it. But it's weird though, because I feel like a lot of kids, because I mean, I teach high school, and a lot of kids kind of already familiar with like there's My Chemical Romance shirts, or their parents playing Blink for them.
Yeah.
So it's like it's crazy. Makes us feel really old.
Yeah, for sure.
To them, that's like classic rock to them.
Right.
So it's like they're familiar kind of with some of these bands already. Some of the bigger ones like Paramore and My Chemical Romance, Green Day, like they already know who they are. But yeah, it's interesting. 'Cause like I said, Travis's production. I hear so many songs. I'm like, man, I wish this was a Blink song. There's quite a few of these Kenny Hoopla songs. There's like quite a few of the Machine Gun Kelly songs. I'm like, man, these could be, and I wish they were Blink songs.
Yeah. I'm glad you took that path. I didn't want to give my opinion just to not persuade you. Not that I would, but to guide you one way or another. But I've been loving it. I think Travis Barker's just been killing it. He's totally winning the quarantine. He's just pumping out music. It's great. And like you said, it's cool to see like a younger generation. A lot of the comments and things I see is like, oh, this should be an American Pie or something. It's like to them, it's like an old movie that an old teen movie that's sounds like, and that's the stuff I love too. Is kind of I fall a little more on like the popular side of things when it comes to punk, and I'm fine admitting that. I know sometimes it's like, oh, it's not true punk, but like the Starting Line and all that, like they sound like songs right off a Starting Line album or some of those other guys, and I think it's great. So yeah, I've been thoroughly enjoying it as well. But well, cool, Mike. I think we'll probably wrap it up here, and thanks for joining me. This was awesome, and hopefully people out there enjoyed it. If you guys watch this back, and I think you should be able to leave some comments and things and questions. We can try to answer those, and we can do this again sometime too. So maybe as we kind of head out here, you just want to let everyone know where they can get your book and where they can pick that up.
Cool. Yeah. Once again, Joe, thanks for having me. It was great to finally talk to you. Like I said, this is really cool, the community that you built. It's great to talk to you and just have just talk about Airwaves and stuff you like. So punkrockandufos.com is my website where I do my UFO stuff on there, and there's also links to my books, Stranger Than Fiction, and then the new book, Hey Suburbia, is out. It came out yesterday. It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and this is a good way to kind of close, because one of the selling points when I was pitching the book to the publisher was like, this stuff's coming back. Their emo nights have been happening, past few years. They're big, they're huge. My Chemical Romance sold out their tour in like 45 minutes, like around the whole world, which is insane. I mean, even like Blink was up for like a VMA like last year. So it's like, this never really died. It's just, it's kind of had a more of a mainstream presence past couple of years. So that was really a big selling point. And the book's really, you're going to like it. Anyone who's kind of grew up in that scene, it's definitely nostalgia based, but also if people are new to the scene, they can pick it up and they can learn about the roots too.
Nice.
Basically the roots going from, what they're into now, like say if they're fans of like the Front Bottoms or any like these newer bands, to obviously, to the 2000s, the Fall Out Boys, and, the My Chemical Romances, to the 90s with like Blink, Green Day. Then you go back to the 80s with like the Descendants, to the Buzzcocks, Screeching Weasel. So it's really, it's really kind of a learning.
Sure. Yeah.
Till wrapped up in a coffee table.
It's a history book.
Yeah. I hope everyone enjoys it. I hope everyone enjoys that, and, is patient with the Ancient Airwave stuff, because
I think it'll be worth it. I think we'll be this fall. I think we'll all be basking in the glory of new music tour, potential film. So yeah, I'm really excited. All right, cool. Thanks, Mike. We'll chat later.
Thanks so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, take it easy.
Have a good day.